and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I am so excited to bring you 15 tier tray ideas for fall. Now today's theme is going to be pumpkin spice. I don't know about you, but I am so ready to cozy up with a warm sweater, get a pumpkin spice latte, and watch those leaves fall. Now today's video is extra special because it is in collaboration with Crafty Kathy on YouTube. She is so talented, and I'm going to talk more about her in just a little bit. But first, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then hit that little notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, hit the drop-down menu and click all so you're notified about all notifications. Then join me on Instagram and Facebook, and let's get social. Give me a like and a follow to join my crafting community, because sometimes I post behind-the-scenes content I know you don't want to miss. Now today's video is a long one, so get comfortable, grab a beverage, a pumpkin spice latte perhaps, and let's get to crafting. So first I want to start off by showing you these absolutely adorable stickers that I found at the Dollar Tree. They are little gnomes with their little pumpkin spice lattes and frappuccinos. So when I saw those stickers, I knew I wanted to do a whole tier tray dedicated to that theme. So I'm going to be following all of the colors and the patterns from those stickers. This first DIY is so easy. I started off by using these tumbling tower blocks and these Scrabble letters that I had left over from another DIY. I'm going to spell out hashtag PSL. So the first thing I had to do was figure out how many tumbling tower blocks I needed to fit the whole thing. And then I hot glued two of them kind of like an L shape to make like a little shelf. And then I'm going to put two together, two on the top and two on the bottom. So there's 4 tumbling tower blocks all together. Then I'm going to take my Scrabble letters and I'm going to arrange them in the middle of my little shelf, and I'm going to make sure that I hot glue them down so they don't fall. Now for the hashtag, I am actually going to use a blank Scrabble letter, and I'm just going to draw my hashtag on there. And then I'm going to hot glue that to my board as well. So for those who don't know, this actually means hashtag pumpkin spice latte, and it's just something that we include in our posts about our pumpkin spice lattes. So after I had it all arranged together, I just simply took my chippy brush and dry brushed some Waverly Antique wax onto this little Scrabble shelf. And I absolutely love how this came out. How more simple can it get? Now, unlike my other videos, you're gonna have to wait till the end to see the final reveal of all of my projects. For this next DIY, I found this candle, and I really liked it because it looked like a shape of a tall glass. And you might want to pick 2 of them up because I actually have an idea for that for Christmas, if you catch where I'm going. But the first thing I did was took the wrapper around the candle off, and then I'm going to take my nutmeg apple barrel paint, and I'm going to paint about 1/4 of the way up. Once that's dry, I'm going to take my mocha apple barrel paint, and I'm going to paint a little bit on top of my nutmeg paint and just a little bit above it, but I am going to leave space up top for a different color. Then, once that's dry, I'm going to take my white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to paint the rest all the way up. And I am also going to paint around the rim of the glass as well. And I actually ended up giving that 2 coats. Next, I'm going to kind of blend my nutmeg paint and my mocha paint together just to kind of make it a little darker and to make it look like a frappuccino. Once that was painted, I set that off to the side to dry, and then I pulled out one of these red and white straws that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree. Now, I have not seen any orange and white straws yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and take my pumpkin orange Waverly chalk paint and paint over the red with that to make this a orange and white straw. Once my cup was dry, I took this burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and I just wrapped it around and cut enough off to fit around the middle of it. And then I hot glued the ends down. Next, I'm going to take a piece of this orange and burlap buffalo check ribbon, and you're going to see this ribbon a lot in this video because it matches great with those stickers, but I'm just going to hot glue a piece around the middle of my burlap ribbon. Next, I took one of these cute gnome stickers and I stuck it in the front of my glass right on top of the ribbon. After that, I took my little straw and I measured it and cut it down at the size that I wanted, and then I took my hot glue gun and just pushed it into the candle wax to help it melt. I did not actually put hot glue in there. I just stuck the tip in just to create a hole so I could stick the straw in, and then I secured it with some hot glue. Now, of course, this is going to be for decorative purposes only. I'm not really gonna light it. But how cute did this come out? Okay, so like I stated earlier, today's video is in collaboration with Crafty Kathy. Now, if you're looking for some major laughs and some encouragement and you just need someone to pump you up, she is your girl. Her energy is absolutely contagious, and not to mention, her DIYs are amazing. She is so talented, so not only will you get some great ideas, but I'm sure you'll be entertained as well. So I'm gonna leave her link in my description box below. Don't forget to check out her video in today's collab after you watch mine, and make sure you say hi and that I sent you in her comments. This next one, I feel bad even calling a DIY, but I picked up this big mason jar cup, I guess, with a handle from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna cut various ribbons to tie on the handle. Now, this is what I'm going to use to hold some cinnamon sticks for when I actually put my coffee bar together. So this was so simple. I used that orange and burlap buffalo check ribbon, I used some lace ribbon, and then in a little bit you're gonna see that I cut some green burlap ribbon, but I am going to cut just a little piece off just to make it a little skinnier so it's easier to tie around. And then this is perfect for me to put right on the top or somewhere on my tier tray to throw some cinnamon sticks in. I don't know if you knew this, but I guess cinnamon sticks is supposed to give you good juju and bring in some good luck and positive vibes. So you definitely want to throw some cinnamon sticks everywhere if you can. But how easy was that? Now, no tier tray, of course, is complete without a beaded garland. So I took any orange beads and the dark green beads out of the colored packs of beads from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to add in the 16mm natural beads as well. Now, for the orange and green, I just took whatever sizes I could find. I just made sure that none of them were the same size as those 16mm natural beads. I hope that makes sense. So to make my beaded garland, I took a piece of twine and added a little bit of hot glue and twisted it with my fingers to kind of make a point so it's easier to thread. And then I just started putting on my beads. The pattern I followed was orange, natural, green, natural, orange, natural, green, natural. And I did that until all of my beads were used up. This isn't going to be a very long beaded garland, but that's okay because I don't like them that long anyways. Now you can see that I'm also using a skewer to kind of help push through the twine of those stubborn beads as well. If you're looking for these natural beads, I will have the link in the description box below. They came from Amazon. After all my beads were on my twine, I went ahead and took my sand sponge and I wrapped another piece of twine around it long ways several times to create a tassel. Once I had it as thick as I wanted, I went ahead and took it off my sand sponge, and then I took one end of my garland and pushed that twine through the big loop that I just made, and then I tied it on my garland. After that, I cut it from the spool of twine, and then I cut another little piece and tied it around the top of my tassel. Now, obviously it's not at the very top, so you want to go a little ways down and then tie it a few times in a knot. Then I took my scissors and cut the loops at the bottom to create all single strands. Now I do use some hot glue to tack some of my twine down, and then I just wrap around the excess twine around the top. Then I just cut off any random pieces of twine. Then I gave my bottom of my tassel a little haircut to make sure that all of my pieces were even. Now you do want to make sure that all of the beads are pushed down right to the top of the tassel. For the other end of my garland, I took one of these cute wood cutouts of a, I assume, pumpkin spice latte, and I'm just going to take a baby wipe and dip it in some Waverly Antique Wax and faux stain this little coffee cup. And then I'm going to use a chippy brush and dip it in some white chalk paint and dry brush that all over my little cup. Next, I'm going to add another one of those really cute gnomes. After that, I'm going to thread the other end of my garland through my little wood cutout, and then I'm going to tie it off into a couple knots. Now again, I did tack this down with some hot glue. Then I went ahead and took my chippy brush and I dry brushed over all of the beads just to kind of give that rustic look to the natural beads. And I did this on the front of my garland, then flipped it over and did it to the back. Finally, to finish this off, I took a piece of that orange and burlap ribbon and tied it around where the top of the tassel is, and then I'm going to make a little twine bow and tie that to the top of my little cup. I really love how this beaded garland came out. I think all of the colors were perfect and they matched really well to the gnome stickers. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, I want to thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really hope that you love what you see. And if you're coming over from Kathy's channel, welcome. Leave a comment down below and let me know that she sent you. If you're returning, I want to thank you so much for stopping back by. I hope you too love what you see today. And hey, I want to know, are you a pumpkin spice latte person? Let me know in the comments down below. So typically I add straws somewhere in my tiered tray. So I decided to make a straw holder. So I took this little pumpkin tray, I guess, or pumpkin holder, I'm not sure what to call it, and I gave the entire thing a good coat of the pumpkin Waverly chalk paint. Once that was dry, I used my chippy brush and Waverly Antique Wax, and I distressed my entire pumpkin. After that, I lightly sanded it down to help all of my paints blend together. Next, I took some twine, and I know it's kind of hard to see here, but I added some hot glue to the back of the stem, and then I just wrapped my stem all the way up with that twine, and I did that for both stems, the front and the back. After that, I took my lace ribbon and that orange and burlap ribbon, and I tied it in a bow, and then I hot glued it to the front of my stem. Now, originally I had wrapped some wired twine around to make the little curly cues of pumpkins, but you're gonna see that I ended up taking them off. Next, I took another one of those cute gnome stickers and I stuck it right in the middle. I thought that this made the perfect little place to add my straws. Now this next one is not a DIY, this is just an idea. So I always have this little mason jar shaker that I got from the Dollar Tree filled with cinnamon, and it's always on my coffee bar. So all I did was take some of that orange and burlap check ribbon, and I just simply hot glued a little piece around it. That way it just coordinated with the rest of my tray. How easy was that? This next one is so fun. So I took this little shadow box from the Dollar Tree, and after I took off the plastic, I had to use my scraper to pry off the back because it was nailed in. After that, I took some 100% acetone nail polish remover, and I started removing the words at the bottom, Grateful Heart. Now, originally, I was going to remove all of it, and then I realized that the top of it said, Start each day with A, and I got an idea. Now, I knew what I was going to do with this, but that just kind of was an added bonus. After that, I took the back of that frame and I peeled off the little piece that was on there and then scraped off the leftover hot glue. Then I took this piece of scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby and I traced the back around it and cut it out. Next, just by using some hot glue, I attached the scrapbook paper to the back of the frame. Now I did use my little brayer tool to make sure that it was flat. After that, I took these coffee beans that I got at a local grocery store and I just filled up my frame. And then I took these mini pumpkins that I got out of a pack, and I'll show you in a minute what it looks like. And I put my backing on, but I'm just kind of testing it out, making sure that I kind of have them arranged how I want and have enough of it filled. I don't want the whole thing filled, just kind of the bottom of it, just like that. So once I figured out that I had it exactly how I wanted it, I went ahead and used my hot glue to replace the frame. That pack right there that I just showed you was where those little mini pumpkins came out of, and that did come from the Dollar Tree. After that, I took this decal I made using my Cricut and I put it right at the bottom of my frame. So now it says, Start each day with this pumpkin spice latte. Now, if you don't have a Cricut, you can always use stickers for this. The Dollar Tree offers a lot of different kinds and colors. So to finish this off, I just took this little latte sticker from this pack of stickers from the Dollar Tree, and it has like a little cat on it or something, and I didn't really like it. So I'm just cutting out this little pumpkin from a different sticker, and I just hot glued that on there instead. And then I'm gonna take a darker green marker and color in the top. That way it matches better with the rest of the decor on my frame. But how cute is this little sign? This has got to be one of my favorites, and it smelled really good as I was putting it together too. Obviously, every tier tray needs the book stack. So I took this little crate that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to paint just the front of this crate with white Waverly chalk paint. Now I am going to go in with a little craft stick and kind of clear out the little indents in it, so that way it looks like 3 individual books. After that, I took these stickers that I got from the Dollar Tree, and starting with the last letter first and starting at the top, I'm going to spell out pumpkin spice everything. And I'm going to put all of my words towards the right side of my book stack. Once all my letters are on, I'm just taking my weeding tool and just straightening them out and making sure that I have them positioned how I like. After that, I gave this entire crate a really good coat of the Waverly chalk paint in pumpkin. Now, before you paint over your letters, you do want to make sure that they are pressed down as tightly as can be, so that way there's no bleeding or just a little bleeding. After my crate was dry, I took my weeding tool again and just peeled up all of the stickers, revealing the white paint underneath. Now, if I did have bleeding, I just took my paint pen and I just traced over it. That way it cleaned it up just a little bit. Next, I took my chippy brush and my Waverly Antique Wax, and I dry brushed over my entire crate to add that rustic look. Then I lightly sanded it down so everything blended in. Then I took my craft stick again and just cleaned out those little indents, so again it looked like 3 separate stacked books. Next, I'm going to take this beautiful plaid ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue it long ways around the sides and the top of my crate. Next, I'm going to take this green burlap ribbon and I am going to cut off the edges where the wires are, and then I'm going to pull off the strings around all of the sides to fray it, and then I'm going to glue that in the middle of that plaid ribbon. Next, I took some twine and I started at the bottom and then wrapped it around 3 times. Now, I just did go all the way around my box, even underneath, because it really wasn't going to make it unstable or anything or make it fall over. So I didn't bother with cutting it off at every loop, but so I just wrapped it around 3 times and then hot glued it at the bottom. Next, I took more twine and I wrapped it around 4 of my fingers to create a bow. Now, before I hot glued my bow on, I took 2 of these cinnamon sticks and I made sure that they were different widths, like one is a little fatter than the other, and I stuck it underneath the twine in an X pattern, and then I hot glued my bow on top. And how cute did this book stack come out? Next, I took this little sign that I got from the Dollar Tree, and this has like a tile in it, and after I unwrapped it, I painted the front of the tile with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I did have to give this 2 coats to completely cover the wording. After that dried, I took this ruler and stuck it in the middle of my tile and drew a line at the top and the bottom with a pencil, and then I took my finger and smudged my lines to make it look like shiplap. Next, I took my chippy brush and my Waverly Antique Wax and I dry brushed over my tile to give it that rustic look. Then I did the same thing around the edges of the frame. Now, this frame is not wood, it's like a slippery plastic kind of material, I'm not sure. So once you paint it, you are going to have to put it off to the side to completely let it dry. After that, I took another one of these really cute pumpkin spice cutouts, and I am going to take my orange pumpkin Waverly chalk paint and paint the bottom of my cup, but not including the handle. Next, I took this tube of caulk that I got from the Dollar Tree, and it's like at the very, very bottom of the tube, but I am determined to get all that I can out. But I squeezed a little bit on the top, and then I'm taking this craft stick and just kind of whipping it around to make it look like whipped cream. And I made sure the entire top was covered. Now, I'm not brushing it in, I'm kind of dabbing it. That way it gives it that 3D effect. Next, I took some cinnamon and I sprinkled some of that on top of my whipped cream. Then I went ahead and colored the handle with my black paint pen, but you're going to see that I actually end up changing that in just a moment. Next, I placed my little cup on the top of my tile. At this point, it is not glued down, but I added a pumpkin to my cup just temporarily. Now, this is when I decided to change my handle. So first, I'm going to paint over the black with Waverly chalk paint in white. And then while I let that dry, I took a little piece of this cinnamon stick and added it to the top of my little latte. Now, I wanted the cinnamon stick to look like it was in the whipped cream. So what I ended up doing was adding a little bit more caulk on top and then spread it over so it looked like it was stuck in the whipped cream. Then I decided I wanted to add just a little bit more cinnamon, but a whole bunch came out. So I just went with it, and I guess I am going to have a little bit more cinnamon than I wanted, but that's okay. I still think it turned out super cute. So after the white paint on my handle dry, I just took some Waverly Antique wax and I painted it brown instead of black, and I thought that that fit in so much better. Now, you're going to see me go back and forth with the middle of this cup. I just could not decide if I wanted something in the middle, but I knew that I wanted to dry brush it, so I did go ahead and add some Waverly Antique wax over it, and now I'm just kind of putting different stickers in the middle to see what I liked best. So first I had that pumpkin, and then I put this one that said, "Let's stay home," and I'm just going back and forth. Ultimately, I decided not to add anything to the cup. So finally, I just went ahead and hot glued my cup to the middle of my tile. Then I hot glued the tile into my frame. I thought this sign came out super cute, and I love all of the texture in it, and I can't wait to put it on my tier tray. Also, let me know, which one of these stickers would you have chosen, or would you have chosen just to leave it blank like I did? For my next DIY, I'm going to use this really cute mini cutting board that I got from Hobby Lobby, and it was originally $3.99, but all of their fall stuff is 40% off right now, so I picked up a few. The first thing I did was take my chippy brush and my Waverly Antique wax and dry brushed that over my cutting board. Then I did the same thing with the pumpkin orange paint as well. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see today, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it also tells YouTube that you're loving my content and that you want to see more. So YouTube will put more of my videos in your suggested home page. So that way you can catch even more DIY and decor inspiration. After that, I took some burlap and I cut it down so it would fit in the middle of my cutting board. Now, I did cut off all of the edges and then pull all of the twine from the edges to give it that frayed look. Before I glued my burlap down, I did go ahead and hit it one more time with that orange pumpkin paint because I wanted it to be a little bit more orange than it was brown. Then I cut my burlap down so it fit the middle, and then like I said, I frayed the edges and then hot glued that to the middle of my cutting board. Next, I took more of this green burlap ribbon and I'm going to cut down a piece to fit in the middle of the burlap. And again, I'm going to cut around the edges and then pull the strings out. That way I give it that frayed look to this too. Then I go ahead and hot glue that down in the middle of my burlap, and then I add another one of those super cute gnome stickers to the top of that. Next, I cut off some leaf stickers from that sheet with the gnomes on it as well, and I'm going to hot glue those on my cutting board too. After that, I'm going to cut another piece of this orange and burlap ribbon and I'm going to tie it in a bow, and then I'm going to use some twine to tie the middle. After that, I glued it to the top of my cutting board. I also added a little twine bow as well. Next, I cut another piece of twine and I looped both ends in through the hole of my cutting board to create a little hanger. Now, of course, I'm not going to be actually hanging this. I will be just placing it, but I thought that it would be cute to complete this little cutting board. I really love using these little mini cutting boards. They are perfect for tiered trays. So if you are at Hobby Lobby, make sure to pick up a few. Like I said, they're 40% off, and they're probably gonna go 50% off pretty soon too, I hope. And if so, I'll definitely be picking up more. For my next DIY, I am going to be making little mini rolling pins. Now, I have been putting little mini rolling pins on all of my tiered trays this year because I think that they are so cute and the possibilities are endless on how you create them. So the first major task you have to do is scrape off that tag off of a stick of a plunger. And to do this, I heated up the sticker with my hairdryer and then used my little scraper to scrape it off and then sanded it down to take off any extra glue residue. Now, the first thing I do with the stick is I do cut off the ends. That way, when I measure, my measurements are not off. So once I get the ends cut off, I am going to measure 5-inch pieces, and you can get 3 out of one stick, but one of the pieces is going to be just a tad bit longer. But I usually just do 2 rolling pins on one tiered tray, so I have an extra little piece to use in case I want it. Now you want to make sure to sand down all of the ends as well. I love using this little miter box and saw. It has come in handy so many times. I will have this listed down in my description box below if you would like to pick one up too. Once all of my sticks were sanded down, I took 2 of them and I painted both in the ivory chalk paint from Waverly. Once my sticks were dry, I took these letters again and peeled off pumpkin spice. And again, I am starting with the last letter first and putting them all the way to the right. Once I had all my letters pushed down, I went ahead and took the pumpkin dowel and I painted that in the pumpkin orange Waverly chalk paint. And then I used my chocolate bar brown paint from Apple Barrel to paint the spice one. And I put 2 coats on each. Once they were dry, I took my weeding tool and I peeled up all of my stickers. Then to clean up any of the bleeding, I took my white paint pen and traced over my letters. So typically with my rolling pins, I use earplugs, and one of my sweet subscribers suggested that I use a handle from the foam brushes, so I thought I'd give it a try. So what I did was I measured a foam brush handle out, and then I thought I would use my miter shears to cut them down. Except for when I went to cut it down, it broke my blade. So then I tried one more time and it really did not work. I don't know what these handles are made out of, but it really did not work. So after I finally got one cut down, I used that to measure the other 3 because you need 4, 2 for each of the rollers. Then I went back to my miter box and saw and just cut them down. After I had all of my pieces, I went through and very carefully sanded each of my edges. You really don't want any sharp edges on any of these for when you pick them up. Then I went ahead and hot glued one to each end of my rolling pins. Then on the ends that say spice, I went ahead and painted those ones orange, and for my pumpkin rolling pin, I painted those ends in green. Then I did lightly brush over the actual rolling pin part with the orange paint as well. Next, to accessorize these, I cut down a little bit of this plaid ribbon and then used lace ribbon to tie around one end of one of the rolling pins. I did end up cutting my lace ribbon in half, that way it was easier for me to tie it around. Now for my spice rolling pin, I used twine and the other half of the ribbon, and I tied that actually to the end of the rolling pin, the little handle of the foam brush, the end of it. So you're gonna see me move it here in just a second. And then to finish that one off, I made a little twine bow and hot glued that to the top of my knot. I thought these rolling pins came out super cute, and I can't wait to display them. For my next DIY, I'm actually using this little tag sign that I had left over from Valentine's Day from Dollar General, but it was only $1. So the first thing I did was cover the whole front of it in the ivory chalk paint from Waverly, and I gave it 2 coats. Once it was dry, I took my ruler and I stuck it in the middle of the tag and drew a line on the top and the bottom, and then I moved my ruler to the other line and drew another line at the end. Then I used my finger to smudge all of my lines to make it look like shiplap. Now it really bugged me because this kind of looked off center and not proportional, so I did decide to add another line to the other end of my tag, and I just used a pencil and smudged it just like the others. After that, I took my chippy brush and my Waverly Antique Wax and I dry brushed that all over my tag to give it that rustic look. Then I used my sanding block to blend everything in. Next, I took these decals that I made from my Cricut, and again, if you do not have a Cricut, that's okay. You can use any stickers, or you can even use the rub-on transfers or the stencils for this. But I spelled out, but first, pumpkin spice, and I thought that was super fun. Next, I wanted to change out the beads on top because they were a little too much Valentine's. So I cut the knot and then I added a green, a white, and an orange bead, and then I tied it back up. To add some detail, I flipped my tag over and I started in the back and wrapped twine several times around the bottom. Next, I decided to take this little coffee cup sticker off of a sheet from the Dollar Tree and add that to the bottom of my tag. And then I decided to add some twine up top too. Now the little sticker that I added, I actually took that off because I'm going to be using it in a different DIY. So in the final reveal, you'll see that it's different. But I thought that that was super cute. For the next DIY, I'm going to use this candle holder that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I thought that this would make a really cute pumpkin. So the first thing I did was paint this entire thing in one coat of the Waverly chalk paint in pumpkin. After that, I did go through and dry brush the pumpkin with the Waverly Antique Wax, but I did lose the footage. I apologize. Next, I took 3 of my cinnamon sticks, and I did make sure to get different sizes of the cinnamon sticks, and I bunched them together and then measured it down to the height that I wanted. Then once I cut it down, I did go ahead and wrapped the bottom where I cut with twine, so that way they all stuck together. After that, I did tack the twine down with some hot glue, and then by using a very healthy amount of hot glue, I hot glued this into the candle holder part of my little pumpkin. Now you do have to hold the cinnamon sticks until the glue sets, that way they don't fall over. After that, I took some strips of ribbon that I had, and I went ahead and glued those around my cinnamon sticks. And then I took some wired twine and I made them curly at the end. Again, I lost the footage for that. And then I took this little leaf that I had off of a little floral pick and I hot glued that to the side. Next, I made a twine bow, which again, I lost the footage for, and I hot glued that to the front of my stem. Then to finish it off, I took that little coffee cup sticker that I had on the tag originally, and I hot glued that to the middle of my bow. I thought this little pumpkin is so cute and it smells so good. Moving on to number 14, and of course we have to have a pumpkin spice latte. So I picked up this little glass coffee mug from the Dollar Tree, and I'm painting the inside bottom portion with that nutmeg apple barrel paint. And then once that's dry, I'm going to paint the top portion with that mocha apple barrel paint, just like we did with the Frappuccino at the beginning of the video. Now, I can't take credit with this idea. I actually saw this done by Bargain Bethany. She is the queen of making these faux drinks and faux sweets. So you're going to have to check out her channel for even more amazing ideas. Then after all of that was dry, I took this little foam piece and stuck it right in the middle, and it was a perfect fit, so I didn't even have to hot glue it. Next, I took this tube of caulk and I cut a big chunk off the tip because the wider the tip, the easier this will be. But I basically just squeezed it right into my glass all over the foam to make it look like whipped cream. After that, I sprinkled some cinnamon on top of my faux whipped cream. And that's what it looks like now. And then I took a little piece of that straw that I had from before and I stuck it in the caulk. Now I do end up changing that out and adding some cinnamon sticks instead, but you'll see that in the final reveal. Then to add some detail, I cut off a piece of this ribbon and I hot glued it around the center of my mug. Next, I took this little wooden pumpkin that I got from a pack at Dollar Tree, and this has a clothespin on it, so I did have to take the clothespin part off. And originally I was going to paint inside the lines, but then I just decided to paint the whole thing, and I'm using my pumpkin orange paint for the pumpkin part, and then I used that nutmeg for the stem and then some green paint for the leaf. And then I'm going to dry brush some Waverly Antique Wax over my pumpkin and hot glue that to the center of my ribbon. I thought this little pumpkin spice latte came out so cute, and it's definitely going to be the focal point of my tiered tray. All right, on to number 15, and of course we have to have the gnome. That's what inspired this entire theme. So I am painting this to look like the stickers you see off to the side. So the first thing I did was paint his hat with the orange pumpkin Waverly chalk paint. Now lucky for me, his shirt was already yellow and his pants were green, so I didn't have to do much painting other than that. But what I did do was paint his belt and his shoes with brown paint, so it coordinated better with my tiered tray. Next, you can see there's a little chip on his pants, and rather than trying to match the greens, I thought it would be fun to add some orange down there, kind of like patches like a scarecrow would have. So I did one on that side and then one on the other. Next, I took a really skinny brush and that brown paint, and I am painting lines going down his hat, and then I'm going to paint them going across. I'm trying to create that plaid look, but not perfect, just kind of a messy plaid, if that makes sense. Next, I took another piece of that orange and burlap buffalo check ribbon, and I'm cutting just a skinnier piece from that bigger piece, and I'm going to hot glue that to the rim of his hat. Next, I took this little sticker off of this sheet, and I'm only going to use the leaves. So after I cut those off, I hot glued it to the side of his hat. Next, I'm going to cut off this little frappuccino from this other gnome, and I'm going to hot glue that in his hand to make it look like he's enjoying an icy beverage. I thought this little gnome was perfect for this tiered tray, and it came out so adorable. All right, now after our last DIY, it's time for the final reveal. What do you think? Oh my goodness, I am absolutely in love with each one of these DIYs for my pumpkin spice latte tiered tray. Now obviously these are not displayed on my tiered tray just yet because that video will be coming at the end of this month when I decorate my fall coffee bar. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. I honestly cannot choose a favorite. I love them all. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments what you thought about all of these DIYs, and if you have a favorite, which one yours is. And don't forget to let me know, are you a pumpkin spice latte person? Do you like the pumpkin flavor? I know a few people who don't. I am definitely a pumpkin spice girl, and I cannot wait to be sipping on one real soon. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you got a lot of ideas and inspiration that you can do for a fall tier tray. I also want to thank Kathy over at Crafty Kathy for agreeing to do this collab with me, and I cannot wait to see what she created for all of us. Don't forget to check out her video, and it is linked in my description box below. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then hit that little notification bell so you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, a thumbs up is always appreciated. Well, until I see you again, I'll craft with you soon. Bye!